Welcome to the Love What You Do podcast. I'm Kelly Dugan, former HR executive turned career coach, and I'm here each episode sharing stories and strategies to help you find a career you love. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am so excited about today's guest because this is my first mentor that I had in college. I am so happy to welcome Carl Olivieri here with us today. Carl, welcome to the podcast. Carl's a senior associate dean of students at Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, MCPHS for short. But Carl, you and I met when I was in college.
That's right.
And you were my intro into the world of higher education administration, which is where I started my career. So I am so excited to pick your brain today about all things higher ed and really give people some insight into what that career path is. But why don't I hand it over to you first, just to give us a little bit of background about your career and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Kelly. My career path kind of started when I was in college. I went to undergraduate at Boston College. And my freshman year, I saw an ad for students who want to get involved in Residence Hall Council, which is basically student activities and like planning events for the residence hall that you're living in. So I won. I think I was unopposed. So like that was great. And then I did it my junior year, my sophomore and junior year. And then for my senior year, there was a position on the executive board. So the way the Residence Hall Council works, Boston College, you have an executive board that oversees all the dormitories and residence halls. And I ran for vice president and won. So I was in charge of budget, maintenance, and management and planning long-term events. I really had a fun time. And then my junior year, I also got involved in the Student Government Association at Boston College. Actually, it was my sophomore year. So I became a senator, and I ran for that, and I won sophomore and junior year. And then senior year, I actually ran for class president. I came in third place, but I did join the winning team on their executive board. So I was part of the executive board for the Student Government Association, which at BC was called UGBC, Undergraduate Government of Boston College. Then I graduated college with a political science major, thinking I was going to law school. And guess what? Didn't get in. 0 for 11.
Oh, no.
Yeah, 0 for 11. So not even one wait list. So I took a job as a high school teacher at my old high school, Malden Catholic. Because in Massachusetts,
I did not know that.
yeah, in Massachusetts, you don't need a teaching degree to be a private school teacher. I taught theology because my concentration at BC was theology, which means you take 4 more classes. My old teacher was my boss. It was a really cool, interesting first year. Didn't love teaching high school. Just the students were not. I wasn't passionate about teaching high school students, and teaching was great, but I really kind of like longed for, well, what else can I do in education? And then I went to lunch with my old advisor for Residence Hall Council at Boston College. He's like, you ever think about going into higher ed? And I was like, how do you do that? And he's like, well, you got to get a degree. So I looked into a program. I got into the higher education program, master's at Boston College. I did it in a year, 10 months. I fast tracked it. And then I started applying to jobs. And that's where I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I good at? Like, I have this degree and what can I do? And I was applying to everything under their sun. I was applying to academic advising coaches. I was student activities. I did not do residence life because I knew I did not want to do residence life. I was an RA for a short time at Boston College. And I didn't love it. And I knew that like I didn't want to live on campus. I wanted to do something outside the classroom to help students and really educate them and get them excited about being in college.
Mm-hmm.
I applied to maybe 20 jobs. I got 3 interviews. And I finally got an interview at this institution called LaSalle College at the time. Now it's LaSalle University in Boston, in Newton, 10 minutes up the road from Boston College. Didn't even know that school existed, and I went to school 10 minutes away. Got
There
gotten
are
into,
so many schools in the
yeah.
Boston area.
It was
Yeah.
an assistant director of student activities, applied, got the job, started a week before classes began, late August of 2005, and like had no time to, you know, really prep. Like it was all right, orientation's next week, let's go. And that's how I started my path to where I am today. I was at LaSalle College for about almost 2 years. And then I followed my girlfriend at the time to Pennsylvania and moved to lovely Northeast PA. I moved to outside of Scranton, and I took a job at a community college because I took a job just to get there. And it was in
Mhm.
academic advising. And again, it was really cool to see students, and working at a community college was really eye opening and really humbling, because it's a very different um, school than what I was used to. LaSalle was a 4-year liberal arts with a fashion design major was their biggest program. Boston College liberal arts. So community college is very different. Students working full-time jobs. And it was really a really humbling experience in terms of like I saw students that I did not really go to school with before and learned a lot about their lives and what they're trying to aspire to. And it was great. But academic advising wasn't for me. So I was there for a short 11 months. I met this woman at a conference, Amy Pache Woodruff, who was the dean of students in Marywood, and we were chatting. And then I saw, lo and behold, the director of student activities was available at Marywood. So I shot my shot. I emailed her and I said, I don't know if you remember me, but like, I met you at a conference. I'm really interested. I have a background in student activities. Would love to be a candidate for your job. Got the job. So I was a director at, I think I was 27, which is pretty young. But I was ready for the opportunity. And I stayed at Marywood, where obviously I met you, my
Our
favorite
paths crossed.
my favorite SGA president,
Oh,
and still are. And I know my students will probably see this, but sorry,
I
guys,
was
it's
just gonna
true.
say those are some big words to put out there. You've had a lot of those.
I've had, and I was there for 4 years, and it was such a wonderful experience. And I got to really run orientation and learn orientation because I wasn't an orientation leader. Um, I was not a rah rah kind of guy in college, but I learned it. I loved it. I ran the entire department from SGA to you know student activities crew. Is that what we were called?
That is, yes.
Yeah,
I think it was crew. It was definitely a C.
the SAC. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So I always love that name. And then for 4 years, I had the opportunity to meet awesome students. Um, and then I decided to go home and come back to Boston. And again, I was just looking for a job. And at Mass College of Pharmacy, there was a position for assistant dean of camp of student activities. And I'm like, well, this is kind of up my alley. Um, my dad went to MCP like for a semester, way back in like the
Small world.
70s. Yeah. First time being on campus was my interview, and I got the job. And it was a very interesting transition because I got the job in September of 2012, but it takes time to move, right? So like I wanted to give Amy, who is an amazing mentor and boss, one of the best I ever had. She was very supportive, and so I gave like a 3-month notice, and I said, I'm going to be going home, but I want to make sure Marywood's in the right place, and I want the new person to have time to really come on and learn about the school. So I moved, got a U-Haul, moved all my belongings on January 2nd, and started at MCP on January 3rd, 2013. And I just celebrated my 13th year here. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it's been a
I
wild
cannot
ride.
believe that was 13 years ago.
It's
Oh my
13 years
gosh.
ago.
That's just we don't bring up such numbers.
I know it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I was assistant dean of campus of student activities. We were student activities. That was our office, and I renamed the department Campus Life because it was more than just activities. We did a lot of educational programs, clubs, and organizations, but we really tried to build leaders and give these students experience, because everyone who goes to MCPHS is going to be in health professions. So we have 6 different programs in the Boston campus, and we actually have 3 campuses, one in Worcester, Massachusetts, and one in Manchester, New Hampshire. Um, the Boston campus, where I am located, is the only one that has undergraduate students. So we have students in the School of Pharmacy. We have students who are going to be 4-year students who may go to pre-med, and then we have students who are going to be doctor of pharmacy, PharmD. So they get a doctorate when they're like 22, 23. So it's a 6-year intensive program. We have students in nursing, PA, dental hygiene. So these students are not your typical liberal arts students. They're here to get a job. They're very intelligent. So I really enjoyed teaching them and having them grow into, upstanding citizens and individuals while I was in campus life. And then um, I got married 2018 and came back from my mini moon. We went to Vegas for a couple days, my wife. And the day I got back from my mini moon, my boss pulls me into my office and says, "Yeah, we're moving you to the Dean of Students office. And we are going to give you a new job." Like the day I got back. And I was like, okay. So I then moved into the Dean of Students office in
Big
2018. And
week.
yeah, and I have been in the Dean of Students office as a full-time dean since 2018. Um, my title now is Senior Associate Dean of Students. My supervisor is the Dean of Students SSAO, Senior Student Affairs Officer. We don't have vice president titles at our school, so really she's the VPSA, the Vice President of Student Affairs. Even though her title is Dean of Students, she doesn't meet with students regularly. My job was, and actually just changed again in September, it was overseeing our care team, our behavioral intervention team. So working with students who are high level, students who are experiencing high level mental health, and working with them to make sure that they're safe and they continue on their journey at MCPHS. So really de facto dean of students in terms of conduct reports to me, residence life reports to me, and now since September, I now oversee the entire Boston campus division of student affairs. So all departments, with the exception of counseling, fall under my leadership. So OSA, which is our Office of Student Access and Accommodations, care team, um, conduct, residence life, campus life, and commencement all fall under my leadership. So it's been quite the ride for the past 13
Yeah.
years.
So, for folks who aren't necessarily familiar with how the inner workings of a college campus are going behind the scenes, you outlined a few of those departments there
Yep.
that you're overseeing. What other areas are there, and how
Mhm.
do they interact with the academic side?
What other areas like in student affairs?
Yeah, in general, just
Yeah, yeah.
in all of college administration,
Mhm.
what are we looking at for
Yeah,
people
so
who
you have two sides.
really
You,
aren't
you
in the know?
have really like 3 sides of the house, right? You have the student affairs side, which deals with students outside of the classroom. So helping them, you know, engaging them when they get here at orientation and helping out with accepted students days and open houses. So your residence life, your campus lives will run orientation usually collaboratively, and move-in day to really welcome those students. So student affairs is really the ones who are there for admission to hand off the baton to us, and we take it from there. And we really focus on their growth and their safety and their experience outside the classroom, um, from day one. And it's really unique because, now that orientation, like I did orientation for years, but it falls under my supervision. I get to welcome students at orientation, and then I get to run commencement when they walk across stage. So it is a really
Oh,
cool
that's
feeling
fun.
to see parents who I saw like 4 years ago remember who I am, and watch me give that diploma to their kids. So it's a really cool feeling. So student affairs is really working with students outside the classroom. So counseling services and OSA, which is formerly Disability Support Services. Those are private confidential offices that work with students for health and work with providers. So even like while I won't know exactly what those students are going through, I can kind of help them navigate and support in conjunction with those offices to make sure they're safe and that they're supported. Then you have the academic side of the house, which is all of your colleges, right? So we have 5 colleges in Boston, we have 5 in Worcester, and then we have 2 in Manchester. So all of those have academic deans. Some have university deans that oversee multiple programs. And those are really the programs that we belong to. Like, for example, the School of Pharmacy, as I mentioned before, you have students in different programs. So we have three programs that are 4 year based, that students get a degree in 4 years. And then the pharmacy doctoral program is instruction in the classroom, but it also adds rotations to get experience at hospitals and pharmacies in the area, as well as all over the world, where students will earn their doctorate based on their academics in the classroom, but also their experience outside the classroom. So we have one dean who oversees the non doctoral and one dean that does. So the academic side of the house works and really answers to the provost, who for us is our vice president of student affairs. And for those of you who don't know what a provost is basically your number two for the university, who reports directly to the president and then acts as the president if the president cannot act for whatever reason. And they are the chief academic officer who oversees all of the academic programs. Also, on that side of the house, you have academic advising. So for us, it's the Center for Academic Success and Enrichment. We have academic coaches, we have tutors, we have success coaches. They also report to the provost as well. So that those areas will focus on students' instruction and growth inside the classroom. The third is the administrative side, right? So it is your student financial services, your registrar, your bursar, which we don't use anymore because that's a term from the 70s, but it's really the business office, right? So
Mhm.
who's cutting the checks, who's collecting the money, who's collecting tuition, where is it all going from, to who's overseeing the budget process for the university. Career services sometimes involves student affairs. In our case, it does not. It reports to the provost, but they are kind of a link between student affairs and the academic side. Um,
Yeah,
and
I've seen
then,
it in both sides of the
yeah,
house,
and
depending.
sometimes, right, it depends on
Mhm.
what side the house is, but we all work very collaboratively. And I guess the fourth part of the house is really the administrative side that's not student facing, right? So your facilities, um, the cleaners of the university who work with facilities management, the grounds crew, offices that don't really interact with students, public safety. For example, like we have our own public safety on campus. We have two levels. We have sworn officers who are either sworn officers in a town or city in Massachusetts or Manchester, New Hampshire, or they are special Massachusetts State Police, so they're able to carry on campus because our officers are able to carry on campus. We also have a second level, which is public safety staff who staff the front desk, help with students who are welcoming to help with situations. They do not carry and they're not sworn officers. So that's really the fourth side of the house. We are a closed
Mhm.
campus too. So we're located in Boston in the Longwood district, where most of the hospitals in Boston are located, with the exception of one.
Mm.
Um, so we are in the prime area of all healthcare. Um, so we have a closed campus where students and faculty have to actually badge in to actually come to campus.
Wow. So there are so many different opportunities to work in a university. And that's one
Yep.
of the things that I find in my coaching when I'm talking with people who are starting to think that, just as you mentioned, you're like, wait, this university's been up the street from me my whole life and I never paid any attention,
Right.
right? And there's an entire ecosystem of opportunity on that campus. And I think people just aren't aware of
Yep.
all of
Sure.
these different areas and roles that you mentioned. Um, for people who are interested in potentially breaking in to work on a
Mhm.
campus for the first time, one, is it possible without a degree? And two, what are the first steps to be able to start making your way into those positions?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a lot of ways, and I didn't even mention like marketing, communications, IS or IT, how we call it informational
Yeah.
services. IT is also the fourth side of the house that's not really student facing. So the way I look at it is we're a corporation, right? Higher
Mhm.
education universities are corporations that have multiple levels and multiple opportunities for people to get involved. And you may never actually even work with a student, right? And that's okay because we do have people that do that. For degrees, it depends on the job. I would say for student affairs, a bachelor's degree is usually required, depending
Mhm.
on what job that you are trying to get. Um, that's not always the case for other careers. Like student financial services, I believe some of them have a bachelor's preferred, but it's really for those jobs. It's also what experience have you had in outside of the corporate world that can translate into the university level, right? So have you
Mhm.
worked in accounts payable? Like, have you worked in, like, what kind of marketing have you done? Like my wife, for example, works in marketing and communication for a law firm. She doesn't have a law degree, but she has the
Mhm.
experience working in marketing to translate into and be successful in that company. So it's really what you
Mhm.
bring to the table in terms of experience. Obviously, degrees, especially in higher ed, the higher that you climb the ladder, the more that's probably asked of you, but it's not always the case.
Mhm.
So it's really based on
Mhm.
your experience and what you can bring to the job that's posted that's going to get you the job.
Mhm. And how do people even learn what's available on a college campus? Like, do
Yeah.
most schools have career boards just like a corporation would? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have our website, obviously, that you can look at and job opportunities. We also partner with LinkedIn, so we will put jobs on LinkedIn. For student affairs jobs, we usually post on higheredjobs.com, sometimes
Mhm.
studentaffairsjobs.com. Student affairs jobs is kind of a subsidiary of higheredjobs.com, so you're going to get the same
Mhm.
thing. But in student affairs, you focus on
Mhm.
student affairs. Higheredjobs.com is really where I would tell people to look because that is where all jobs are going to be posted. That's where non-student
Mhm.
facing corporate jobs or corporate like jobs are going to be posted. We also
Mhm.
sometimes work with outside consultants that will post, for a small fee, they will post it on their website. So depending on what the job is, it's really those kind of avenues that we try to utilize.
Yeah. I know, I remember higheredjobs.com very fondly from when I was in that world of, even for internships, like, so much opportunity
Yep,
on
there's
there.
there's tons of opportunity.
Yeah. So, obviously, you have this sweet spot of working with students in campus life, student life, in being dean of students,
Mhm.
de facto right now. Why did you pick that path of all of these potential available paths within the higher ed world, and what do you love about it?
I picked the student activities route because it's the only job I got, right? Like, and that's just being honest. Like, I needed a job. I
Yeah.
stayed in it because I loved what I did. And
Mhm.
I was when I was in college, when I was at BC, the RHA, like it was more like programming than anything. And like, we did a
Mhm.
campus. I mean, my first big event was a university wide barbecue in the spring, and we called it Spring Fest. And we rented, drums of old oil drums, whatever it is. We put charcoal in it and we cooked food ourselves, which back in the early 2000s probably was okay, but now it's like, we didn't have gloves. Like no one was watching if
Yeah.
I was going to blow the university up with a campfire. It
Yeah,
was
do you have
very,
a
very,
permit?
it
Yeah.
was, I don't even know if we did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on college property, so we probably did. But that was my
Yeah.
first big event, and like I remember my roommates and my friends coming and said, "Wow, this was really fun," and I'm like, "Yeah, it was really fun." And so like that's when my passion really grew. And when I was at LaSalle, like there was a staff of two, it was the director and me. And my
Mhm.
director at the time, Anne Marie Kenny, is still one of my closest friends. And she challenged me in a way that no one ever has. And it was good. Like I needed a reality check, right? Because I came in like, yeah, you come in, you're 24, you're kind of a hot shot, and it's like I can do this, and like it's hard. Like trying to convince an 18 and 19-year-old to do this, and like now you're their boss, but you're only 5 years older than them. Like you were just in their spot
Yeah.
4 years ago. So for me, it was a reality check of like, okay, I need to mature myself very quick to gain the respect because I think the biggest misconception among young professionals, and we can get into this later, is the respect factor. Is like people demand respect, but it's you need to earn it. and you need to meet the students where they are, but also level yourself up where you're a mentor to teach them what is best and let them make decisions that they're comfortable with. And
Mhm.
so that year and a half was really eye opening for me. And when the Marywood job came up, like there's no question I wanted to continue this. I wanted a chance to run my own ship. And
Mhm.
it was, I mean, talk about humbling. Kelly, you were there, right? Like the first month, my SGA wanted to get rid of me because I came in and wanted to change things up because I didn't think the ways things were going were the best for the university and the best for me, right? But it's not the professional needs to adapt to the surroundings just as much as the surroundings need to adapt to the professional. So that was a hard lesson I learned in respect and respecting what's been done before you. Because I'm a big
Mhm.
traditionalist, and at some point someone's going to take my job. Actually, someone does have my old job, and they've had it since September. So like I've had to sit back and let them make decisions, knowing like I may not have done it this way, and that's why you have one-on-ones, and that's why you have debriefs. But I chose student activities and stay with it because I love seeing students have fun, and more importantly, I love seeing what they become after college. And at Marywood, more than any other school, I would probably say I still have the strongest connections with people like you, who I've seen grow and become, moms and successful people in the corporate world, and some even go into higher ed. And to me, like that's the biggest reward.
Yeah. I know. To think that you were 27 when I was a freshman is crazy. Like,
Wild.
because
Yes.
that is wild.
Yeah.
Because you were like the adultiest of adults in my mind at the time. And
I was
it's
not.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
I know. But it goes to show about how you carry yourself, right? And how you set yourself up to have that separation. And I love the term that you use of like being a mentor. Because I think that really that is the difference. You when I haven't really shared very much on the podcast yet, but you convinced me to go into higher ed. That was the first step in my career path
Remember that
after
conversation?
going
Yeah.
to undergrad. Yeah, very much so. And I remember having this aha moment of like, wait, this is a job. Like, this is a job that people can do.
Mhm.
And even though there are tons of people who go to colleges and universities, I think there's a lot of people who don't realize that, like, wait a minute, there's this whole realm
Yeah.
of opportunity here that you don't necessarily open yourself up to. But when I was a graduate assistant and working in the career center and
Yeah.
doing career coaching, right off the bat, my first year of grad school, when 6 months ago I had been
Yeah.
needing career coaching, right? Like
Yeah.
it is, it's such a mindset shift of
Yeah.
okay. And I do find it's really about, it's not about age at all. But it's about experience and skill set. And what I love about coaching even now is it's not professional and person who needs help. It's two equals,
Yeah.
but it's how you utilize the skills of coaching to be able to help people get what they want, just as you
Yeah.
shared. And I think so much of what I do now, I has grown out of my experience with higher ed, even going all the way back to Marywood.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really do love. And I love your perspective on of, you know, working in student life, campus life.
Mhm.
You shared earlier on in the conversation about like wanting to create leaders. And personally, I think my biggest takeaway from my entire undergrad experience was everything I got out of student life,
Sure.
student activities, being an SGA,
Yeah.
doing orientation, you know, those experience prepared me more for what helped me be successful in higher ed and in corporate life and now in my own business than any class that I went to.
Mhm.
Not nothing against my amazing professors, and I've
Right.
loved my education, but when it comes to kind of those real world skills,
Yeah.
those are what I took away. And I think why we're still close, right? Because that was such
Yeah.
an impactful part in my life. So how how do you feel you are shaping that experience for students? And
Yeah.
what are some of the hallmarks of that that you're intentionally building in what you do?
Yeah, I think it's it's very different now post COVID than it was before COVID.
Mm.
Because
I didn't
for,
even think about that.
for a whole year, especially like, residence life fell under my leadership during COVID, and we went from, hey, you got to vacate the buildings, and we never closed as an institution, so we were always in the office, but like all of our student activities is now online, and it's like, I mean, it was a very odd world for about a year, right? But we decided to open up full. But when it came to residence life, students can live on campus, but we didn't allow them to have roommates. And it wasn't because we didn't want them to. Like, we still did not know. I mean, as you know, like
It was
every week was
safe.
new regulations, right? Like, so like we still had to, our university had to wear masks on campus for 2 years, and we required testing twice a week, right? So we did not know what it was going to be like when you live with someone, and like, are we going to have an outbreak? What's that going to look like? So students came back, but they lived by themselves. So the year after that, now it's, you have these students who never had a roommate before, who their last year of high school was cut short. They didn't have prom, right? They didn't get a chance to go on a senior week event excursion. And now we're asking them to come back to reality and come back to normal. And it was very, very different. It was different for my staff too, because they weren't planning programs for like a year in person. But it's really those life skills of like communication that still to this day is the biggest struggle with students. Like the amount of roommate conflicts and room request changes, and the amount of parents that call up because they're upset about their students getting into an argument, or their student doesn't like the residence hall they're living in, is so much higher now than it was before COVID, right? Because these students are, it's a different world, right? Like parents are very involved, and parents should be, most likely, and not all the cases, their parents are paying the tuition most of the time. Um, we do have a lot of students who pay their own way, but it's working with those students to try to like, hey, or having a meeting with a student. Can my mom join? No, your mom can't join, because I can't tell your mom the fact that you vandalized property, because they don't really need to know. You can tell them, right? But like, it's not my job to tell them that. Um, I know we're kind of going off a little bit, but like, it's just, I think for me as in my job now, and for all my staff, I try to teach my staff to meet students where they are, but also lead them down a path that's going to help them be successful and become better in whatever they need, right? Whether it's planning a program and filling out a program proposal and like what's needed, and walking them through the process. Because I mean, you know how to run a program, Kelly. You know why? Because I taught you, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we have to do now. And I think that like the hand holding and the step-by-step process is more so now than anything. So we have revved up our trainings for students to give them the tools they need to be better. But on the dean's side, I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with students where I've had to like feed the student a question or an answer, or like rip it out of their mouth because they just don't know how to answer. And it's not their fault. It's just the way that they have experienced life. And for a lot of students, college is a welcome is welcoming, but it's a reality check, right? Mom's not going to do your laundry, right? At school, mom is not going to contact your faculty member. Let me push back. Mom will try to contact their faculty, but faculty's not going to care, right? I will
Mhm.
absolutely talk to any parent they want, but like I am limited because of FERPA of what I can and can't do. But also, it's not my place to tell you, right? Like, I'm
Mhm.
not your child. You have to have those honest conversations with your students.
Yeah, that is crazy and definitely was not as prevalent when I was in higher ed, I think, as it is
No,
today. Yeah,
yeah, it
it
wasn't.
yeah, crazy. I didn't even think about that point. And then it introduces a whole level of complexity on the professional side, to your
Yep.
point of, who is your client, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
in that, like,
There's
who
multiple.
are you? You're there to be the advocate for the student, but
Yep.
also you're managing all these other stakeholders, and I'm sure that can be
Yeah. I mean,
tricky at best.
yes, stakeholders, that's a whole different conversation, right? um,
Mhm.
my clients, the students, right? Like, and that's what
Yeah.
you have to, because we are also in the business of keeping and retaining students. So my
Mhm.
job is to make sure students are welcome here and that they're successful, but sometimes this isn't the place for you, right? So for, for years, part of my job before I just kind of changed into more of a supervisory role, I was working with students who take leave of absences from medical situations, or students who experience a medical crisis that required a hospitalization, mostly mental health. So my job was really working with them and the parents at times on whether this is the right place for you right now. So is it best to take a leave of absence? Is really MCPHS the best place for you right now, right? We have to have those hard conversations. And every year we have students leave who take a leave of absence. And every year we have students just leave and don't come back. And that's the hard part of the job because you want to help everyone. You want to make sure everyone stays and graduates, but that's not always the case. And sometimes in my job, I need to do what's best for the student. And sometimes it's best for them not to be here. Because if they're
Mhm.
continuing down a path that they're not going to graduate, their grades aren't great, their mental health might be so detrimental that they're never going to be able to focus on themselves and grow as a person. I don't want them here and keep spending tuition money where they're not going to graduate. And that is the
Yeah.
hardest part of my job.
That it is, especially because it's a moment in time. I mean, I
Yep.
think you and I both have careers that could attest to the fluidity
Mm-hmm.
of the future, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm a big believer in even things that feel like setbacks in the moment are opening doors for you later on down the line. And so for you to share, it is what's best in the moment for them not to be there, even though that might feel in every fiber of their being in the moment like a failure, a setback, a
Yep.
step back. It could be
Mm-hmm.
what's saving them financially, but also with their mental health, but also
Yep.
opening up a door for them that nobody can foresee at that point.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I think that especially working with college age population, that's one of the things that I try to instill even now in career coaching clients of how every decision that you make in your career, you're only making a decision for that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
You are not making a decision from now till retirement, even though it feels like it.
Right. And that's the hardest part is like, well, I need to be a pharmacist. No, you don't. Right. You
Yeah.
don't have to. Like, I want to go to law school. I didn't take that
Yep.
path. And that was a
Mhm.
tough pill to swallow. It's
Yeah.
everyone's going to find themselves, right? And it's but like you said, like it's helping the student realize like what's ahead of them and what can be. And a lot of these
Mhm.
students are legacy students whose parents are pharmacists who went to MCP, and there's so much
Mhm.
pressure, especially on our international students. So our international population is 12%, which is very high
Wow.
for
Yeah.
us. Um, we have a lot of students whose families come from a health science background, and there's a shame associated with the student if they can't live up to their family expectations. So it's managing that and helping them realize and managing. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to parents. I was like, well, they really want to be a pharmacist. And the kid is sitting right, the student's right next to them saying, I really don't want to do this anymore. And that
Yeah.
is, and that's kind of like a
Oof.
oof, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
it's like, why am I in the room for this conversation? This should have happened yesterday without me. But like, that's my job, right? Is sometimes helping the
Yeah.
parents realize your student doesn't want to do this, right? Or they
Mhm.
can't do this right now, right? Like when you get to certain programs and you get to certain years, if you don't have a certain GPA, you're up for dismissal. Like this is not like you can change majors, but if you are not getting the GPA that's required, you can't be a nurse. You can't be a
Yeah.
pharmacist. You can't be a PA. And as much as you want it, there are some things that like wanting is not enough. And I think those are the tough conversations that I have.
Those are incredibly tough
Yeah.
conversations. And truly, those moments will come up so many times throughout a career,
All the
right?
time. Yep.
Of, I really want this job, but I have to move to California for it, and I'm not going to move to California, and now I need
Right.
a new path, right? My last question that I have for you is for people who are in a time of career crisis
Mhm.
and or just wanting a change. Maybe they're in a very traditional corporate role
Yep.
and this is the first time that they've ever heard about higher ed jobs or ever really let themselves think about it. What is one small step they can take now to begin preparing themselves for a possible career in that world? And maybe there's a few answers to that because as we talked about, there's so
Yeah.
many different potential paths.
First thing I would say is find someone who works in that field and talks to them. Have a
Yeah.
coffee, go to dinner, ask them the questions, ask them what they're. That's what I did, right? Like I know
Mhm.
I had someone and it came up in a lunch that I had no intention of like talking about higher ed. Like, um, I would recommend talking to someone in the field to talk about what it's like, right? Every institution is different. MCP is very different than Marywood, which is very different than Luzerne County Community College, which was very different than LaSalle. But what they all have in common is you are all student. My job was all student facing, right? So no matter what you do, you're going to be dealing with students, and students are going to be different everywhere you go. My students now are not liberal arts students, right? They love to study. Like luckily our conduct has very, very little in terms of alcohol violations, parties, like those aren't my kind of those aren't my kids. My students study on the weekends. My students study every night. Um, that's not what it was like at other schools I've been at. Like not that Marywood
Mhm.
was a big party school, but like it wasn't a study school, right? Like,
Yeah.
depending on the program, unless you were in architecture, which is,
Mhm.
wild to how that program has really taken off, which is great.
I know.
Um, but it's really like expecting what if you want to work in the student affairs side, you need to talk to someone who works with students and what they do. If you don't want to work on student facing, but you want to take a look at, okay, it's higher ed for me. Like, what are the benefits? What is it like? I think still try to talk to someone, but research the school. Research how long have they been around for? What programs do they offer? Right? Email people, like randomly email and say, hey, I came across your information. I'm looking to go into the field. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to talk to you, right? And like in a good way,
Particularly in higher ed.
especially
And
higher
I
ed.
think for people coming from from a corporate background,
Yep.
probably underestimate the willing to helpness that exists
Yes.
on the
It
higher ed
does.
side.
It
It's a
does.
totally different world.
It does. And
Mhm.
it's like, it's because no matter what area you work in higher ed, you're going to collaborate with people who are not in your area, right? Like,
Mhm.
I work with people in student financial services all the time. I work with people in IS. I have worked with every department on campus. And I have built relationships in 13 years that I'm proud of where I can text someone, ask them something, and it's done, right? Or they can ask a
Mhm.
favor of me, or like, let's collaborate on something. I need your advice. People who work in student affairs like to work with others, right? If you want a cubby job or an office job by yourself working at a computer screen, higher ed's probably not for you, right? Are there jobs like our marketing team is mostly remote now, right? But they're still working with admission. They're still working with us to showcase the university and try to appease those people who we want to come here. So there is still some level of human interaction, and I think that's the biggest part. But yes, you'd be surprised when people want to talk to you about like what they do.
Yeah, 100%. And the
And
other piece of
I do
advice
have
I'd
one I
share.
yeah, and I do have one more
Yeah.
suggestion too. Like
Yes, please.
there is tons of conferences that are
Oh,
in higher ed.
yes.
Okay, so you have NASPA, the National Association of Student Affairs Professional, which is the biggest for student affairs professional. Um, and then every department has their own. Like student activities has NACA, National Association of Campus Activities Boards, and NODA, National Association of Orientation Directors. Um, Marketing has different organizations they belong to, financial services. Everybody has something, right? Go as an attendee, meet people,
Yeah.
see what they have, because you know what they have at those. They have job postings, and they have, most of those places will have on-site job interviews. Okay. We call it the
Mm.
placement exchange, where we are able to showcase a job that we are advertising, and we'll either do on the spot interviews, mostly for graduate students, but we'll have representatives there to talk about the job and learn more about the institution. And that is probably the best well-rounded experience you could get, is by going to see people who do it every single day. And everyone's there for a reason, right? They'll talk to you. Buy them a coffee.
The networking alone, I mean,
Yes.
that's hugely beneficial. And it's a great way to just understand what the job is by
Mhm.
like going to some sessions, really
Yeah.
just immersing yourself in that world. And the other thing that I would mention to folks, if you're nervous about cold reaching out to people, if you went to undergrad, start with your alma mater. Like,
Yep.
even if you have zero connections left, people love to help alumni.
Yep.
So
Yes.
reach
100%.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Start with your alumni group.
like I didn't have LinkedIn, right? When I was
Mm,
looking for jobs,
yeah.
like, go on LinkedIn, DM someone. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised how many people would respond back to you,
Yeah.
you know?
100%. 100%. Carl, thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and I'm just so
Yeah.
glad that we got to catch up a little bit. This was wonderful. Where
Kelly,
can
it was my
people
pleasure.
connect with you if they have if they are interested in attending
Yep.
MCPHS, if they have a question for you after this podcast, how can people get a hold of you? Are you on LinkedIn?
Of course I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah,
There we go.
I'm on LinkedIn. I have to actually look at my username because I forget it. Um, yeah, so you can also go to mcphs.edu. You can search me in the directory. My work email is there. Yep, I'm on LinkedIn, Carl Olivieri, PhD. That is my official LinkedIn profile because I had to put that out there. So
Yeah.
I and I think you know those two are probably the best. Email is, I don't want to say it's always on. I'm always checking email, right? I think that's the two best ways to reach out to me. And I'll be happy to, talk to you and shoot you a text. We can Zoom, whatever. And that's what, like, COVID is as horrible as it was, really gave us the opportunity to connect with people like you and I are doing, um,
Yeah.
through interaction on the computer. So happy to do that. Happy to set that up.
Carl, I will talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for joining the podcast today. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. As always, if you're looking for coaching, support, or would like to submit a question, you can drop me an email at info@yourplaceatthetop.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review so this podcast can find its way to other amazing listeners just like you.